What's up? I'm Sin, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of a project breakdown for my new song, Jump. So let's get into it. We're going to start with the intro. I'm just going to move left to right. That's easiest. So, something I've been doing recently in my songs is really working on layering. I've just found that in some of my older tracks, when I first started out making music, I started with hard style, for example, and I found you could pretty much get away with just tossing in a bunch of really loud sounds that just completely take over the entire space, and it pretty much sounds fine. But I'm trying to be more specific and selective with putting elements, like putting the main lead only in the center but widening it up a little bit and stuff like that, just kind of working on my placement. So this song, for example, it has 29 tracks. So I tried to keep it pretty small track wise, but I ended up drums, for example. I could have probably put these in the same tracks, but I just made different one for a different group or bus or whatever you want to call it for the intro and bridge versus the drop. I just used different drums, but I'm gonna just be starting by going over the layering I did for the intro. So I am heavily inspired by Hall. I just think he's a great producer. Love his songs, great to work out to, great to listen to live, and his songs have a very cryptic feel to them. They're always in minor sounding key. They're just very haunted seeming, and I think that's sick. So I started off with a grand piano. I do have Max for Live and Ableton Suite. I think if it's within your budget, I would highly recommend getting it over some of these other plugins, just because it has everything you need pretty much. And people would say that, and I'd be like, oh, what does that mean? It has a wavetable, and I don't even remember what it's called. I think it's just wavetable. But sorry, I had to freeze everything because trying to record this was just eating my CPU. But pretty much any sound you want, search a piano. There's like 100 of them. You search a bass, 100 of them. So it's got a ton of different presets that are great for synths. And I'm not gonna just sit here and pitch Ableton Live for you the whole time, so I'm gonna just get into the video. But pretty much I started with this. I start most of my songs with a drop. So for the drop, I had this. Let me see. That basic step down, and I could just reverse engineer this drop into here so you could see it's kind of similar. Yeah. And then I just added some octaves. So if it was like D, I added lower one. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Just get kind of creative with the stepping. I try to mix it up every 2 bars or so. So like this was my first one, and then this is my second pattern, and then this was a little pretty much the same as this first one, but a little different. And then this is the second one, but a little different. So just mix it up, try to keep it interesting. That's pretty much it for the piano. Now for the sub, this is one of the reasons I love Ableton Suite. I literally just searched up sub, and there's 30 of them. So I just found like really basic, I don't even know, it's a drone bass, it says. It was just a really full bassy sub that helped filled up what I needed for a sub. I didn't need it to be crazy. It's an intro sub. It doesn't need to have a lot of movement. And then I just threw in these random glitch noises I found on Splice. I just thought it was cool. It added some more realistic sounds to it. We were hearing it live, and it just also sounded kind of eerie. And then, let's see. This was something kind of cool I did. Let me go ahead and unfreeze this real quick. So I just had an analog pretty much just giving me white noise. Here. Right? And then I mapped an LFO tool to the utility. So it would jump up and down and kind of like these orchestral steps. So it sounds like this. I thought it was cool. So I just messed around with that until I liked it. And then put a G clip on everything. It's just so much easier than actually mixing and getting everything down. And you want your stuff to be loud, so it works. Like you might as well just do that. So that's pretty much it. And then this Atmo, this is my first time I tried to make my own Beyond's atmosphere. So I'll just show you guys a quick little look at what I did. I found this noise. Here, I'll play it for you guys. It's kind of an eerie noise I liked. And then I just kind of used a random wavetable that looked like a distorted sine wave kind of. Here I wanted it to start off big and then get low. So I just pretty much tossed this onto the frequency to make it get high pitched and then back down low. And effects, all of these effects are just to make it really wide. Hyper, that just adds pretty much the same. It just adds unison and width. Compression just to help the sound come out a little more. Reverb obviously, and utility. Both just to widen it up a little bit. But that's pretty much it for the intro. I didn't really have any drums come in until about, well, I had one at the start. Like that one, just as a little hints, there's more to come. And then I slowly tease them as I get to the 5th bar. So about filling up the whole space with all these layers, I found these orchestral hits. If you put these in your drums, they make your drums just so much louder and fuller. So you could hear this. It sounds like it's straight out of a movie. It's just sick, and it's like takes your drums from sounding like so much more professional. And I love it. And then I just have these basic snares in. I got a lot of these samples from this Muerte masterclass I took. It's pretty cool. Definitely check it out. But one big thing for dubstep too, I would highly recommend getting is this washout. Pretty much you just smack that on anytime you're doing like build up or a drop, and you could see, hold on, where even is that? Here, you could see it just, I think like a high pass filter. It just, so definitely would recommend it. It's free. You can get it online. Just search up bass clefs, easy wash. It'll be there. But now into the real meat of this video. This is going to be my main drop. So this is the first drop. You can see here, this is still the intro. So that's actually not the drop, but here. So right here, I have a pretty basic drum pattern. It's just a kick and a snare. And this is what I use sidechain compression for, which you can see here. And I use I have Kickstart, and honestly, it's a complete waste of money. It might be easier on your CPU. I think that'd be pretty much the only benefit, but you could get so much more specific side chaining using compression. So for example, I have this whole drop routed to sidechain to just this kick and this drum. And it makes it so, as opposed to Kickstart, where it has a set amount that it ducks every quarter bar or every time it gets impact, for anytime it hears a different instrument, this ducks to the amount that it hears. So I could see to the exact amount I want, and I could adjust all of this. If I want to duck not as fast, I could adjust the release. It's just way better, and it takes like 2 extra seconds, but it does a better job at compression from what I've seen. So, but anyways, so I just tried to have this really distorted Paul type sound. So on the drop, you could hear that, and I'll break it down for you guys. This is the main stabs of it. And something really important for this kind of music too is putting a delay on your drop and on the synths. I don't know exactly why. I think part of it is just you're expecting it to come in a little bit earlier without the delay, but then when it delays, it just sounds like it's taking more time, so it just sounds cooler. But it also helps, I'm pretty sure, just spacing with like kicking the drum gives you more space before it has to sidechain, so it just sounds clearer. But this wasn't really super impressive sound design. It just tossed a saw wave with some noise, and that's pretty much it. The distorter. Then this is the actual stab part of it. This is the mid. And this part, I put a little macro here so I could adjust, but I don't really mess with that. And this LFO, you can see this is, it comes in a little bit after the high end, just so it fills out and has its own space, so you could hear it coming in after. And then this is the sub. This sub was a big pain in the neck to put in because it just sounded terrible at times with the rest of the mix. So you really got to be careful putting just the right amount of input. Pretty much the second it started clipping, so if you go up like that and start clipping, I was like, oh, that's too much. So I did it right before it started clipping. I thought that sounded the best. So there you go. And then for the saw, this is a pretty easy saw to make. Saws in general, I think, are pretty easy to make. It just took me a second to figure out. So one of the big things is noise is a huge aspect of it, because this is what it sounds without it. And it sounds cool, but you want it to sound a little more harmonic. So I found this blip noise, and this is what it sounds by itself. Like that, honestly, in and of itself could be a cool saw. But then adding comb, this filter, you'll see it on any saw that you make, or like a video that's showing you how to make sustains and saws. Always use the comb filter. It all these little peaks adds kind of tonality to it, so it makes that gritty tonal sound. And then I just have a little delay. It comes in late, and I have this LFO mapped to everything. And especially so effects wise, you need a compressor. This will just help with tonality. Also, distortion makes it grittier. And then I added reverb. I just thought it sounded nice. That's up to you. But an important part of this is tone automation. So here you can see there, that's automated, and I have it just slowly go down to the actual pitch. You don't need low alter boy. You could use kilohertz frequency, or I don't know, some kilohertz plugin. Kilohertz. I think it might be frequency shifter. Or I don't know, but one of them, you could use that if you don't want low alter boy. And this just helps make it so it's kind of slowly going down to the right pitch, add some movement. So that versus that just sounds so much more boring. So that's how I made the saw. The rest of the drums I'm not really going to get into, but it's pretty self-explanatory. I just added stuff that sounded cool. I added these like little risers in the middle just to add some kind of swing. So, but for effects, I just pretty much got these from a sample pack. Just edited them up a bit. I use room on everything. It just makes your samples way wider and bigger, and it just sounds great for dubstep. It's worth the $50, I swear. If this is the one plugin, if I could only have one plugin, it would definitely be Valhalla Room. And I just did stuff that I found sounded cool. I had these little had this like glitch effect. But yeah, you can kind of experiment, see what works. And then that's pretty much it. I just switched up at the end here. I did a different drop. Just changed I just modulated the LFO, just the LFO rate, so it kind of went faster here versus, and I just thought that was a cool way to switch it up for the second drop. But this caused a lot of problems with distortion from the low end, so that ended up making me realize that I gotta map the envelope. So look at this. I have this configured, so when this bar plays, it's not even showing up. Maybe it's not doing anything, but it's supposed to make the sub come in a bit later just to make sure it side chains a little bit harder so it doesn't get as muddy, because when it's double timed here like that, it just gets really muddy really fast, so you really gotta try to combat that. Hopefully that made sense. But besides that, that's pretty much all I did. And then for the ending, I just ended by keying everything down a little bit. And that's pretty much it. If you guys want me to go into more detail of specifics, I would love to do so. But I just dropped this today, so if you guys like the song, I'd love for you guys to go check it out. Maybe try to repost it for me. That'd be huge. And yeah.